You are listening to the Becoming the Wealthy You podcast with Jermaine Foley. If you're a woman who makes good money in your career or business, but you're not building wealth like you want to, then you're in the right place. In this podcast, you'll learn how to stop overspending, break free from the cycle of debt, save lots of cash, and become the wealthy woman you were born to be. Let's dive in. Well, hello there. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are talking about the skill of managing credit cards. You all, this is an important skill because I know so many of you are struggling with being in the cycle of credit card debt. And I know that if you can learn how to handle credit cards in a way that serves you, then we can really cut back on how much debt we find ourselves in. Because the truth is, there are benefits to using credit cards, but if you're not savvy and really intentional about taking advantage of those benefits, then credit cards can harm you. They can be a burden versus a benefit. Okay, so today I'm going to share all that I know, all of my philosophies around handling credit cards and things like that. Now, this episode will not be focused on getting out of debt because that is its own skill. So as you can recall, for the last few episodes, we've been dealing with the skills of money. And so today we're dealing with the skill of managing credit cards. But episode 112 was all about the skill of managing money. Episode 113 was all about the skill of saving money. And then episode 15 was dedicated to the skill of having money. And so if you haven't listened to those, I recommend you go listen to those after this episode and really understand that all of these are skills that you can learn and master no matter where you are right now. So if you're not necessarily savvy with credit cards, or you don't trust yourself with credit cards, or you feel like you've been mishandling them in the past, that doesn't mean that that has to be your future. And so what I'm going to share with you today will really help you to learn the skills of handling credit so that you can use them as a tool instead of letting them use you and trap you. Okay? Because I believe that credit cards can be a tool or a trap. Either one, there's no gray area. Either you're using them as a tool, you're getting the perks and the benefits, or you're trapped and the credit cards are using you and they are getting all the benefits and you are being burdened by that. So I'm so excited for this episode because I think it's a great one. It's a liberating one, and I'm excited to share everything. But before I do, I want to let you know that keep your eyes and ears open because the Wealthy Woman's Academy will be open for enrollment within the next month or so. So keep your eyes and ears open. If you've been thinking about working with me, if you've been thinking about signing up for money coaching, if you've been thinking about getting some support and having some accountability so that you can really build wealth, so that you can get out of credit card debt and stay out, so that you can save. I'm talking having 10K or more in your Life Happens Fund or your emergency fund so that you can stop overspending and so that you can really start investing and building wealth, then the Wealthy Woman's Academy is for you, especially if you are a woman who makes good money in your career or business, but you're just not building wealth. You find yourself stuck in the cycle of overspending, stuck in the cycle of credit card debt, and really not being able to save, and you feel out of control and undisciplined with your money. The Wealthy Woman's Academy is your place to fix all of that, and I will be your coach. I will be right by your side, helping you every single step of the way. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, keep your eyes and ears open. There will be a lot more information coming, but I wanted to put that on your radar. And in the meantime, if you have not taken my free class, which is all about building wealth without going on a strict budget, then what are you waiting for? That class is awesome. It walks you through the 4 essentials you need to know in order to build wealth without going on a strict budget. I do not believe that you have to give up your life and live this boring, frugal life in order to get your money under control. And I walk you through the 4 essentials you need to embrace in order to make that a reality in your life. So if you want to take that class, it's totally free. You get immediate access to it once you sign up. All you have to do is go to jermainefoley.com/wealth class. That's Jermaine with a G, foley.com/wealth class, or you can go to the show notes and sign up. All right, let's go ahead and dive into today's episode. So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to look at the benefits and the dangers of credit cards. We're also going to look at the 5 key aspects of good credit and the best practices for handling credit cards wisely. Now, these are best practices that I have come up with. These are best practices that have helped me because let me tell you something. I used to be afraid of credit cards. So you all know my story. If you don't, go to episode number 2, my not so pretty money story, and I break it all down for you there. But once we paid off our debt, so remember, we paid off over $200,000 worth of debt. So that entire time period, we did not have credit cards. And that was probably an 8 to 10 year time period. We did not use credit cards at all. We only used cash and debit cards. And then after we were out of debt, I was literally scared to use credit cards. I thought they were bad. I thought they weren't good for me because all of the personal finance gurus I was following, they didn't believe in them. So I stayed away from them. So it took me years to say, okay, I think I want to try having a credit card. And so once I did, I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I can handle this. And I want you to know the same thing. You can handle credit cards, period. Even if you don't know how to handle them right now, even if you think you're stuck in the cycle of debt right now, you can learn the skill of handling credit cards. Credit cards are not good or bad. They're neutral. They're just a tool that exists in the world. It's all about how you handle them and how you use them. And remember, you can use them as a tool to benefit your life, or you can be trapped by them. And instead of experiencing the benefits, you can experience the burden of having them. So with what I'm going to walk you through today, hopefully you'll start to figure out like, okay, which side am I on? Am I using the credit card as a tool, or am I allowing the credit cards to use me? Right? You want to be on the side where you are using the credit cards. So before we get into the strategies, let's break down the pros and cons of using credit cards. Because like I said, many financial experts, they urge you not to use credit cards. Again, I'm not one of them. I do, however, like I said, think you can fall into one or two camps. So based on what I'm about to share with you, reflect and ask yourself, which camp am I in? And no matter which camp you're in, you can change. So if you feel trapped right now by them, you can become the kind of person that will use them as a tool. Remember, this podcast is called Becoming the Wealthy You, which means that wherever you are right now, you do not have to stay stuck. You can learn new things. You can create new habits. You can create new patterns, and you can become someone who knows how to handle credit cards wisely. Okay, so here are the benefits of credit cards when used wisely. Number 1, they build and strengthen your credit score. A well-managed credit card history is one of the fastest ways to improve your credit. Number 2, rewards and perks. You can get cash back, travel points, purchase protections, and extended warranties. This is my favorite part about credit cards. I love getting the points, especially the travel points. I love when I'm able to book a flight for free, all because I use my credit cards to do the things I was already going to do. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit. Another perk that I really love is the cell phone protection. So a lot of times the cell phone companies will sell you additional insurance. If you have like a brand new phone and you want to insure it, they'll insure it for you for like $20 or $30. And then if something happens to it, you're covered. Maybe you have to pay a deductible, but you can get a new phone. Well, some credit cards offer this perk that if you pay your cell phone bill using your credit card, then you will automatically be covered if something happens to your phone. They will cover that, so you don't have to pay that additional insurance. This is something that we took advantage of for many years until Verizon, which is my carrier, decided that they were going to offer incentives to no longer use credit cards to pay your cell phone bill. So now I get a discount for paying my cell phone bill with my checking account. So instead of it being a credit card, that they charge every month. It just comes directly out of my checking account. The third benefit is this one: flexibility in the case of emergencies. So having access to credit can help in unexpected situations if your emergency fund is not fully funded, or even if it is fully funded. So you guys know that I love Ally Bank. That is an online bank, and that is also a high yield savings account. And that is where I highly recommend you keep your emergency fund so that you can really gain that high interest. But because it is an online bank, it's not the easiest to access your money. But if you have a credit card, you just pay for whatever emergency you have with your credit card, and then you pay your credit card off using your money from Ally. So that's what I do. So if I have a car repair, for instance, I'll use my credit card for the car repair. Very convenient. I'm getting perks, right? And then when it's time to pay my credit card that month, I send them a payment from my Ally account. And for instances where you're building up your Life Happens fund or your emergency fund, and let's say you have an emergency that comes up and you don't have enough cash, then of course you can use your credit card in that situation as well to get you through. However, you still want to be trying to get your emergency fund fully funded and not necessarily rely on credit cards for emergencies. I know some people think, well, I'll just use my credit card for an emergency, but that's how you can really get stuck in debt. If you have a big emergency and you don't have any cash to pay it off right away, then you'll end up paying compounding interest on that credit for a long time. And right now, interest rates for credit cards are like 20, 25, or 30%. So that's very expensive. So it's best to have the cash available and be building that up and then pay off the credit card with that cash whenever you have an emergency. So the fourth benefit is fraud and security protection. Credit cards offer more security than debit cards. I am speaking from experience here. There was one point when we were, like I said, only using debit cards, and I had a debit card with the credit union, and there was some sort of fraud that happened, or I can't remember exactly what happened. I think it was actually a situation where I ordered something online and it never came. And it was really, really cumbersome and chaotic trying to get that charge reversed. And so when you're dealing with debit cards, that is your money. That is cash that actually leaves your account. It leaves your life. And, it can be hard to get it back. Versus with a credit card company, once you file a complaint, they immediately credit your account back. And so that is another reason why I really like credit cards, especially when I'm shopping online and things of that nature. Okay, so now let's dive into the dangers of credit cards, especially if you mismanage them. Number one, high interest debt. Carrying a balance means compounding interest that actually works against you, not for you. Albert Einstein said that compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Those who understands it earns it, and those who don't pays it. So if you don't really understand the power of compounding interest, it's very likely that you're paying it. This is where you pay interest on interest. So here's a really simple example. Let's say you have a credit card and you have a 20% interest rate and you go and spend $100 on that credit card and you don't pay it off. They're going to charge you $20 after 30 days. So instead of owing them $100, you now owe them $120. And you may be thinking, well, that's not horrible. No, it's not. But next month, if you don't pay it off again, if you only pay the minimum, you're going to pay interest on that $20 interest. And so instead of owing $120, and I'm not taking into account if you're making the minimum payments or not, you will be paying $144 when you do the math. And then it's like $170 something if you don't pay it again. And it just compounds and compounds. So it's not like you only pay interest on the amount you borrowed. You pay interest on the amount you borrowed over and over again. And you pay interest on your interest. So that is compounding interest working against you, right? So you're paying it instead of earning it. And of course, you earn it by investing. And that'll be a whole nother topic, a whole nother skill. but you earn it by investing in mutual funds and things like that. But you pay it by carrying a credit card balance from month to month. Danger number 2 is that it can encourage overspending. It is so much easier, you guys, to swipe a credit card than to spend with cash. Because when we actually hand over our hard-earned cash, there is psychological pain involved. But it is so easy to swipe a card, and it doesn't feel like you're actually spending money, or it doesn't feel like the money is leaving you, but it is. And that can quickly add up and catch up to you. So this is especially dangerous if you're using your credit cards to just impulsively spend and to overextend yourself and to spend more than you make. You never, ever, ever want to use your credit cards to spend more than you make. I use my credit cards to pay for things that I was already going to pay for. And that is how you want to use your credit cards. You can use it to pay for groceries, pay for gas, pay for utilities, pay for tuition if you have kids in daycare or in private school and they let you do that. Use your credit card to pay for things that you were already going to pay for and get the perks for those things. But using it to buy things that you don't have the money for, using it to go on vacation, you have no money to pay it off, then you're going to let compounding interest be working against you. And that's not what we want. Okay. So we don't want to use our credit cards as a way to overspend, as a way to spend more than we make within a month. And this is where people get into trouble. They use their credit cards to spend more than they make. They use their credit cards as like an extension of their paycheck. And this is where we really, really get into trouble. Okay. The third danger is if you only pay the minimum payment. So paying only the minimum drags out debt payments for years. My philosophy, again, is to pay for things that you normally will buy instead of shopping and buying things you don't have the cash for. And once you do that, so let's say you put your groceries on there, you put your gas on your credit cards and your utilities, then all you're doing is paying that credit card off at the end of the month with money that you already set aside for those things. Okay, so if you, again, join me in the Wealthy Woman's Academy, you will learn my process for setting up a money system. And within your money system, you are accounting for gas, groceries, all those things. So you can put all that stuff on a card if you want to. And then at the end of the month, just pay off that card with the money you set aside for those things. And then that way, you're not paying any interest, but you're getting all the perks and the convenience of using credit cards. The fourth and final danger that we're going to talk about today is credit score damage. Late payments, high utilization, and new credit applications will lower your credit score. And we're going to dive deeper into those things in a minute. But a lot of us think that, oh, as long as I pay my cards on time, then I'm good. But high utilization, that is a huge factor when it comes to your credit scores. And a lot of us are really getting very close to maxing out cards and things like that. And so that is really damaging our credit. And remember, our credit is important because it tells lenders how likely you are to repay money. And based on that likelihood, it will determine how much you are charged in interest. So when you're buying a house or buying a car or getting car insurance or even getting a cell phone nowadays, or sometimes even getting a job, they look at your credit score. And if the credit scores are not where they want them to be, you pay more, or sometimes you just don't get the job. So your credit score is very important. It matters. Please do not listen to anyone who tells you that your credit score doesn't matter. It does matter. If you're a person who's not a multimillionaire, then your credit score definitely does matter. And you want to take care of it. And there are 5 ways to do that. So let's go ahead and get into that section right now. Okay, so there are 5 aspects of your credit score. And I'm going to break those down for you right now. The first and most important one is the fact that you pay your bills on time. Now, when it comes to the credit score folks, the FICO people and all those people, they don't necessarily care if you pay more than the minimum. They just care that you pay at least the minimum. But I'm going to add my piece on here because this podcast is all about this skill of handling credit cards. And so I say, not only do you pay your bills on time, but you pay them in full and on time. Okay. So again, if you're not overextending yourself, if you're not using your credit cards to impulsively spend and to go on shopping sprees and to, make yourself feel better and to indulge in retail therapy. And if you're only using your credit cards for the things you were already going to spend your money on anyway, this will be easy to do. Okay. So you want to pay your bills on time and in full. This is worth 35% of your credit score. And let me tell you something right now. If you don't pay your bills on time, your credit score will definitely drop. You must pay your bills on time. Number 2, the second most important aspect of your credit score is your utilization. You want to keep your credit utilization low, which means 30% or less. So this is what this means. Let's say you have one credit card and the limit is $1,000. If you have a balance of $800, you are going to get dinged because your utilization is high. In this particular instance, you want to keep your utilization to like $300 or less, and you want to pay that off again in full every month. Okay, so now let's look at the second aspect of your credit, which is your utilization. You definitely want to pay attention to this because I think a lot of people don't know this or they ignore this part, right? You want to keep your utilization low. If you have a credit card, let's just say you have a $1,000 limit. You want to spend 30% or less of that at a time. Now, many people say it should be 10%. But I'm going to be generous here and say 30% or less. So that means you never ever want it to be at $800. You never ever want it to be at $400. You want it to be at like $300 or less. So only use like $300 of that at a time. Now, when FICO looks at your credit, they're looking at all of your credit, not just one card. So let's say you have a card that has a $10,000 available limit and then one that has a $1,000 available limit. If you, let's say, are not even using the $10,000 one, so you have $10,000 available, you're good to go. You can max out that $1,000 one and it wouldn't matter simply because they look at all of your credit in total to determine what your utilization is. They don't go card by card. I hope that makes sense. So if you have a total of $11,000 of available credit, if you're only using like $1,000 or, $3,000 or less, then that's good. And again, the best practice here is just to only use your credit cards to pay for things you were already going to buy, not for impulse spending, not for retail therapy, not to go on a vacation that you didn't plan for, right? You want to use your cards for things that you were already going to buy. This is how you use credit cards as a tool and not as a trap. The third aspect of your credit is to limit new credit applications. And this accounts for like 10% of your score. So not as big as the first two, but still, if you go around opening a bunch of cards, you may see yourself getting a little bit of a ding. The fourth aspect is to keep older cards. So that card you've had for decades, that one you want to keep. You don't want to close that one. You want to keep that one open. And keep in mind too that even if you have a couple cards that are maybe like a year or two old, you may want to keep them open because if you shut those down, then it will lower your available credit and then that will hurt your utilization. So if you have any cards that are open, I say just keep them open as long as they'll let you keep them open with zero balances and, make sure that they're put away safe, but there's really no need to close them. Because I like the fact that if you have them open already, I'm not saying go open more, but if they're already open, then it's, really expanding your credit limit, your available credit, and that helps your utilization. And then the final piece is just having a mix of credit. So this is, again, a small piece, but what this means is maybe you have a credit card, a car loan, and a mortgage. When you have just one type of credit, that could ding your score a little bit. This is not a major thing. So if you only have one type of credit, please don't go out and get more if you don't need it. But I'm just showing you how your credit score is determined, and having a mix of credit helps your score. Okay, so before we go, let's run through 5 things you can do to really help you properly handle your credit cards. Number 1, pay off your balances in full every month, avoid interest charges, and keep your credit strong. Number 2, don't carry a balance just to build credit. It's a myth. Carrying a balance does not build your credit up. Paying in full will help your credit score. Understand how interest works. Remember, we want to let compounding interest work for us, not against us. And whenever you carry a balance, you're letting compounding interest work against you. Use your credit strategically for rewards and benefits, but only if you are committed to doing so responsibly. Listen, if this sounds like you don't trust yourself yet, you're not ready to do this, you don't think you can do it, you don't necessarily have that trust, then pause until you get there. Remember what I said. It took me a long time to really start using credit cards again until I built up that trust with myself. And if you are one of my clients in the Wealthy Woman's Academy, I will help you build up that trust. Because again, I believe that we all can get to the point where we can handle credit cards like this. This is not reserved for a select group of people. You can be one of the people who really handles credit cards in such a way where you get free flights and free hotel rooms and things like that. And another strategy here is to make your payments before the closing date. This can lower your utilization before it's reported to the credit bureaus. So remember, utilization is super important. It's the second most important factor that goes into your credit card. So one strategy around that is to pay your card before the closing date. So you can look on your statement to find out when that date is. So listen, I hope this was helpful. Again, I want every one of you to know that no matter where you are right now when it comes to credit cards, if you want to, you can become good at handling credit cards. You can be savvy. You can use them as a tool. You can be the one that takes advantage of credit cards instead of having the credit cards take advantage of you, but only if you're willing to make that decision and to say, this is it. I'm drawing the line in the sand. I am becoming the kind of woman who handles her credit cards wisely. All right, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye. Wait, before you go, have you checked out my free class? It's all about the steps you need to take if you want to build wealth without going on a strict budget. To sign up, simply go to jermainfoley.com/wealth class. That's Jermaine with a G. Foley.com/wealth class. See you in there.